Hello and welcome. I am doing a live today from somewhere a little bit different, and that is the Canberra Innovation Network, where I have a co-working space. Every Friday I come in, and today I'm only here for a little while because I've got a sick child, but I've come here for a little bit, and so I wanted to talk to you today about the power of saying no. Now, I'm just going to write a comment as well because I just want to see, I've got a slightly different way of recording the audio. So I'm just going to ask people, can you hear me? Because if you can, please let me know. Because it's always great to know that all the technical stuff is working really well. So let me just check and say, please say hi. And in fact, I'm just going to stop this, and I'm just going to listen to it just to make sure that it works, and then I'm going to do it again, unless someone's out there and you can let me know that, aha. Anna, can you hear me? Because this is a slightly new technical way that I'm doing this. If you can, please let me know. I'm going to assume yes. I'm going to keep going. But if there's a problem, please let me know. Actually, I'll just write another comment. Anna, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. And that is just to check that it's working. Yes, says Jenny. Fabulous. I am so glad. Well, I'm going to keep going then. So today I'm going to talk about the importance of saying no and, when it's appropriate, not to help the whole world. Now, before I begin, I actually wanted to mention something else, which I've just established the Joyful Business Club group on LinkedIn. So not everyone is on Facebook, believe it or not, and I'm finding, interestingly, a lot of women in startups especially are not as active on Facebook, but they'd really like to connect with other amazing women and male champions on LinkedIn. So search for the Joyful Business Club on LinkedIn. It's a very small group at this stage, but I'd love it to grow. I really want it to be an environment for sharing information, especially information that's going to help and support each other. So that would be great. Now, the genesis for today's talk was me having a vent with some female friends in startup and business because I'd had approaches by two other guys, and I won't give any details, but other men in the innovation space who wanted stuff from me, and I was sort of feeling like I was being dragged into this vortex of needing to spend a lot of my time on things that weren't my own projects. So I've got three, identities I'm working on at the moment, and I'm a wife and a mother. Hubby's away at the moment, so I'm especially busy. So I don't have a lot of free time. And I was really struggling with this because I was really feeling really guilty about it because, I'd always been taught to believe in the importance of helping other people. It goes to my spirit of generosity and karma, and also too because a lot of the positive self-help that is out there always talks about the importance of doing more than you're asked for, particularly in a workplace environment. So I'm going to talk both about, going above and beyond helping other people where it's at your own expense and how to say no, and also in that same context where at work you're going above and beyond and where it's not fulfilling for you. So going to address some of those issues. So let's start with Napoleon Hill. So as you know, I've been doing a lot of work rereading his book and sharing some insights on the Joyful Frugalista as part of a book reading club, which I haven't done for a few weeks. I was a bit put off after I read a review about him being a charlatan, but I will get back to it because whether you believe in what he said or not, he has been hugely influential for so many people. And Napoleon Hill says, "The man who does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for more than he does." So the concept is when you go above and beyond, your contributions will be valued and you will then soon be compensated for more than you had done. And there's, countless examples throughout his book about people who've done that. He gives an example of a secretary who goes above and beyond. She, just works tirelessly to support her boss. She then, works out how to develop things like marketing plans, and she then develops a way to basically market her son into a good job, and ends up, I guess, becoming quite wealthy herself as a result of that. And yesterday, what day are we today? Friday. Day before. Yes, yesterday. Wednesday. Gosh, where's this week gone? 2 days ago, I did a fabulous podcast interview with a banker who's currently in Singapore but spent much of his career in Hong Kong. His name's Eric Sim. Hugely motivational and inspirational guy with some great tips on finance. But he also writes about how in his career he's always volunteered to do more than he was asked. Like, for instance, he was being invited along to some training courses, and he likes photography, that's his hobby, so he volunteered to take all the photos for the event. He did such a good job of that. He was then invited along to future training courses, including training courses that were overseas. So it was a great opportunity. Although he wasn't being paid as a photographer, he was recognised for his skill set, and then he got to build his contacts in his banking circle and also go on overseas trips, right? It's pretty good, right? And David Schwartz, in his book, The Magic of Thinking Big, which I really like and is also hugely influential for me, he talks again and again and again about the importance of when there's opportunities, not saying, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have capacity, just to say yes and to take those things on. He gives an example of a team where someone leaves and they've got a shortfall, so the boss asks one person, he says, no, I'm too busy, I don't have time. Asks the next person says, well, my personal philosophy is taking things on. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Worked with his secretary to be more efficient about how to schedule meetings and take calls. So he took on double the role. He did really, really well, and he was promoted and he was recognised. So those are some of the common sorts of things we're talking about in terms of, the power of doing more, of helping other people, of collaborating, and how in the end, not just by doing your narrow thing, how that's going to benefit you. And to that, I would add too that, in the modern innovation space, there's a lot of emphasis on collaboration. I genuinely hope that the Joyful Business Club is a collaborative space. I certainly have collaboration at the front and centre when building that. I think a lot of people know that I am very collaborative in the way that I work, that I've actively promoted other businesses through my podcast and through my writing, and that I've done those sorts of things. And I guess finally something that, is a bit, not triggering, I guess, per se, but something that's very important to me is, I guess I've inherited from both sides of my family a strong work ethic, or at least I like to be perceived to be having a strong work ethic. I tend to beat myself up a bit sometimes, thinking that I don't work long and hard enough, even though there's no justification from that. My lovely husband tells me that I'm one of the hardest working people that he knows. I have trouble going on holidays sometimes because I have trouble switching off. So I like to be active, and I like to be busy, and I like to help people. And so these are all things that are very important for me. But now we get to the problem. Well, what is the problem for that? Well, the problem basically is some people take advantage of that. And if you're watching this, I'm guessing that you feel the same too. You're not always rewarded for that extra work. Sometimes people will expect you to do the work and they steal the glory. And sometimes they're just hoping for some schmuck to do it for free because they can't be asked or they can't be bothered. And I think it's really important to recognise here that if you're not being valued for the contribution you are making now, they're not going to wake up one day and go, wow, she's indispensable. No, look, they'll just replace you. And that's happened time and time again in my career. I've sort of said, look, this is a lot of work here. I'm working long hours. There's a lot that, I'm struggling to do. And I've sort of been told, look, it's not important. And the moment I leave, I'm, replaced at a higher level or with a team and with other people. It's not until after I leave that often they realise the work that I've been doing. And let me just say that sucks. It really does suck. It doesn't leave me feeling particularly good about the contribution that I'd made and the work that I've been doing. It hasn't really led, to extra promotion or other things. And secondly, there's, I think, important to note that there is a gender element to this. So the people I had spoken about before, they're all men. So we often see young men working hard, working long hours, and we reward that differently to young women or women in general who are working hard. It's sad but true. So I started my public service career working for the Department of Defence, and I wasn't so busy when I started for various reasons. So whenever there was an opportunity for extra things, I would take them on because that's part of my work ethic. If there's a volunteer needed for something, I'll do it. And so I woke up one day and I realised that I had taken on all the admin tasks in the branch. I'd taken on coordinating the morning tea roster. I'd taken on, I think it was coordinating the security roster. I'd done all those sorts of admin tasks. Now, do you think when it came to assessing me for suitability for promotion and other things, they went, well, Serena, that's great. You've really shown initiative there. You've shown you're a team player. You've done all these things. No. I was like the morning tea lady. So, there's how we perceive the extra work that women should take on because they're women is quite different to the extra work that men often take on, and they do. And it's sad, but it's true. And when I was working in that particular environment, they had actually had to do a lot of work in the women and leadership space because all of us at women were feeling very unhappy in that work environment. I mean, I had several days where I was in tears in the bathroom. Hiding away in the toilets because I felt that I wasn't being given the same opportunities as other men in my workplace, that I wasn't getting the same access to information, I wasn't going on the same work trips or being asked to. Access to other jobs and other things was severely limited. And so the more I took on and the more work I did, it wasn't actually helping me. So if you can relate to that, you know what I'm talking about. And like I said, this week, I had a lot of calls to, for me to do stuff for people that I didn't really know that well, to either share information that was quite confidential to, me and my business, to spend time promoting them or their business, or, to do pro bono work. I think the phrase was pro bono at first with money down the track, and lots of figures about potentiality dizzied around and lots of name dropping about famous people. But when it all boiled down to it, they're looking at, a fair amount of work for me. And that's kind of what happens. And also too, just speaking in confidence, so I have a board role where I'm the only woman on the board, and they rotate the roles on the board. And one time earlier this year, the person who was going to be the minute taker wasn't there. So I said, look, I'll do it. I'm happy to do it. So that's fine. So I did the minutes, and it's quite a big job taking minutes from a board meeting. Probably took me about, 3 or 4 hours, and then there was a couple of hours in terms of finessing some of the details and sending it out. I had to do additional research too to make sure that I had all my facts correct because I'm new to that role. So that was fine. But then they decided, in fact, I wasn't even consulted. Next time they had a board meeting, I was just down on the agenda to be the note taker. And so I went back and asked, and I didn't even get an answer. And eventually I pushed it and said, what's going on here? Because I was the note taker last time. Why am I down to be note taker again? And it turned out that they'd sort of decided that I'd done such a good job that I was going to be a note taker all the time. And that was quite a dilemma because on one hand, I felt flattered that they thought that I was such a good person, I was so professional at what I did that they wanted my services again. But on the other hand, I was kind of pissed off because it's not like they were asking the other young guy who joined the board at the same time as me to be the note taker. And I felt that it would really change the dynamics. If I'm the only woman on the board and I'm being the note taker, it's quite a different thing. So that was actually quite tricky to get out of, but I had to say no. I had to really strongly say no, I don't think this is fair. I think that all board members should equally rotate the roles. This is a pro bono non-paid role, and in that particular instance, I didn't actually have time. I had quite a number of things, and it would have been, literally up until midnight trying to do that, or we were about to go on our skiing holiday, cancelling one day of our holiday to do it. And so I had to say no, and it was really hard and it was really difficult. So that's kind of the problems with taking on too much. And like I said, there's a lot of positive self-help stuff that talks about the value of hard work, and this is important. I do think it is important to have a good work ethic and to go above and beyond, and the good karma that comes with collaborating with other people. But to, recognise that some of this advice is intrinsically gendered. We don't live in an equal world. Women are often expected to do more and expected to do unpaid work. So what is the solution of this? So I've been thinking about, how to advise this. I mean, like I said, I've been struggling with this quite considerably myself this week as it was. And I guess it's to sit with yourself and to think, how do I actually feel about this? Do I feel happy or do I feel annoyed? Do I feel like I'm expected to do this other stuff? Or am I really happy, enthused to do this? Do I see that I'm getting something out of it in terms of learning and developing? Or do I just feel dumped on? And you'll know pretty quickly. And in this instance, in both of these two incidences, I actually just got really agitated. One night I actually didn't sleep well after it, and the next day my hubby said to me, well, you can't do that, like it's clearly upsetting you. And more to the point, it was taking me away from my key businesses. Like I'm pretty busy as it is. How do I have time to do pro bono work for someone else's business? So that was pretty, a pretty big insight. And I guess the second thing is that, look, you don't have to save the world. Now, we all have the power of one. We all have the power to make a difference. I've been speaking this week as part of the Zero Waste Revolution Festival about, tangible things that people can do to promote sustainability. Every single person has that power of positive change, but it's not your responsibility to save someone else's business or, your boss or your workplace single-handedly. It's not your responsibility. Does anyone else feel this kind of sense of pressure, or is it just you? I remember in my previous workplace, I'd actually resigned. I had resigned from my work. I tendered my resignation, and about a week or two later, and it was a few weeks before I was about to leave my work, and I was stressed out to the max, and all I wanted was 15 minutes to sit and meditate at lunchtime, and I didn't have time. And I made myself go and meditate, even though I didn't have time. And then I was sitting there, I went, well, why am I so stressed? And I went, well, I'm so stressed because I'm the only one in the section. So we were a section of 5, and I had tendered my resignation, right? So I was out the door. I was gone. And everyone else was on training courses, on holidays, on here and there and doing other stuff. They weren't worried about whether the section was going to keep going or not. It was just muggins left holding the boat. And, partly that's gendered and partly that's other things. But it's important to sort of go, well, do I feel annoyed about this? Yeah, hell yeah, I feel annoyed about this, that people expect that I will just be the only person to keep things, running. And clearly I wasn't being recognised for it because I was annoyed enough in that role that I had decided to quit. And no one ever thanked me, by the way, for being stressed out and spending that day being the only person in the section keeping the wheels rolling. They were just all off doing their fun stuff. So, just know you don't have to save the world, right? It's important. You can make a contribution, but don't give in to this guilt that other people will place on you, that, if you're not there, things will run, or I really need you. That's a big one. I really need you. Really? You really need me to do stuff that's, not necessarily valued. That's an interesting one. This brings me to point number 3, which is know your worth and value your time. So know how worthy you are. Have a rough idea in your head about how much your time is worth per hour. If you were doing consultancy work, how much would you be paying for this? Well, if that's what you're paying for, well, why are you doing that for free necessarily if you're doing a whole lot of additional things? Are you doing 2 or 3 or 4 people's jobs at work? If so, do they know that you're doing this? Have you made the case of the time that you're worth, your time that you're worth, and what you're doing and how important that is? Because these things are all really important, and it all comes down to your self-worth. Because, I know a lot of people in the workplace will say, no, I'm too busy because I'm working on this important thing. But muggins me will always sort of say, oh, yeah, look, okay, I've got, blah, 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 but I'll take it on because, this is my work ethic. It's important to know your worth because that'll make it easier to say no too. And then fourthly is trust your own why and know that it's important. So all of us, we have our own gifts, we have our own path, and we have our own goal. I'm deeply passionate, as most people know, about empowering people, particularly women, with money, both in terms of saving and investing and also going out in business, and also about sustainability. This is my why. This is what I'm deeply passionate about. So with these other people who are trying to distract me, I've sort of got to ask, well, I've got my why. I'm developing my business because this is important to me. If I'm off spending my time helping them because they haven't got their act together, how is that helping me with my business and what I want to do? So this isn't selfish at all, because my business is helping other people and it's moving forward. But in order to do that, I need to focus on me. And that includes saying no to things sometimes. And that's hard, because I get a lot of requests for people wanting me to write about them, their product or their service. At the moment, I'm getting about 2 or 3 emails a day from people offering me interviews, wanting me to feature things, unpaid, I might ask. Earned content is the new term for that. We are offering you an interview with XYZ to promote our dodgy product, and we don't pay, but we are after earned content. And podcasting too. Like, I'm getting, hit up left, right and centre for podcasting guests. Now, I've had some amazing guests. I'm very honoured and deeply honoured about that. I've got some that I've recorded with, which are amazing, and that is fabulous. But I have to say no. If it doesn't fit, my niche, my vision, what I'm trying to achieve, like, it just doesn't sit right. Like, it sounds like spam that's going to turn my readers and listeners off. I have an obligation to my readers and listeners too. I mean, it takes me hours often to write things and to put it up on the podcast and then to share it on social media. Podcasting looks easy, but my husband Neil spends 4 to 6 hours per podcast episode editing it. So I don't have capacity to have random, I should help someone out because I feel sorry for them kind of podcast if it's not going to fit my goal. And that's hard sometimes, but I've learnt the hard way, because there's been a few that I have done like that, sort of, I guess, feeling a bit like I should out of a sense of obligation. And usually they're the ones who don't share back on social media or tell people or thank me. And I'm always amazed at this. Whereas it's often the ones who it's truly a blessing to get on there, totally aligned with their message, who are so thankful and grateful. Because I think sometimes people are so full of themselves, they don't get it. They don't get what you're trying to do to help them. Gee, I'm sounding nasty here, but I'm sure there's bits that you can relate to here. And then the 5th point is it a genuine two-way collaboration or cooperation? If you had a problem or issue and you needed their help, would they do the same for you? If you asked them to do something, would they do the same for you or not? And because that's going to be really telling. And sometimes it's good just to test those things. Sometimes I'll ask something deliberately of the other person just to see how they respond. And if they're like, oh, I'm too busy, no. And I'm like, well, you expect me to do all this stuff for free for you, but you're not going to do anything for me, like, we're done. And that's really important to test that. Now, that probably sounds mean, but there are some people who just will use and abuse. And if that's the relationship, you need to value yourself and say, I'm worth more than this. Like we were talking earlier about self-worth. I'm worth more than this. And, I deserve to be, spending my time in ways that it is more aligned with my values, and that it's going to have maximum impact on what I want to do, and it's going to be positive. Which brings to point number 6, which is, do you feel slightly in awe of this person you're helping? Because sometimes this is what happens. We look up to that person. We see them as a mentor or someone we really aspire to. They'll often name drop a whole lot of, important people they know. They'll, hint at, in the future, they can introduce you to things or do stuff for you. And that's, for me, where I often get roped in. I sort of feel, wow, look, I'll just do this and this person will notice me, or they'll do this and it'll lead to something. So if you find yourself in that, you need to actually stop and go, you're actually an amazing person yourself. You don't need to run around like a lackey for this other person. If you're feeling a bit like that relationship is unequal, it's probably there for a reason. Now, obviously, if it's something that you're really passionate about, like for instance, you might be helping in an election campaign for a candidate that you really, really believe in which case, that's fine. But it's important, I think, just to ask that question. Are you in awe of that person? And if so, why? Is this a good relationship for you personally or not? And finally, the big one. It is okay to say no with love. The world is not going to end. You don't have to be nasty about it. You don't have to explain. You just have to say, N-O. No. This isn't, for whatever reason. And, you can do it, really. You don't have to save everyone, and you can say no. If this has resonated for you, I would love to hear more about why, and I'd love to hear about your experiences. I probably sound like I'm venting a little bit, but like I said, it was had been a big week, and in a closed group that I'm in. You know, I mentioned some of these details of some of the things I'd sort of been asked to do, and the other women were like, big NO, you need to draw boundaries with this. Like, why are you even, you know, contemplating these things? So it's something that, you know, it's still a work in progress for me as well. I don't necessarily have it all figured. Still just working stuff out. But thank you so much for your time and for listening. Thank you, lovely people. All the best. Oh, and make sure to join the LinkedIn group, the Joyful Business Club. You can search for it and it's there. Thank you. Bye.